Experiencing the Depths of Jesus Christ by Madame Jeanne Guyon. Chapter 12. Continual Prayer. If you remain faithful in the things touched on up until now, you will be astonished to feel the Lord gradually taking possession of your whole being. I would like to remind you that this book was not written for your enjoyment. Neither is it presenting just some method of prayer. The purpose of this book is to offer a way in which the Lord Jesus can take full possession of you. As the Lord gradually begins to do this, to take full possession of you, it is true that you will begin to enjoy a sense of His presence. You will find that this sense of the Lord's presence will become very natural to you. Both the prayer with which you first began and a sense of His presence which comes with that prayer will eventually become a normal part of your daily experience. An unusual serenity and peacefulness will gradually spread over your soul. Your whole prayer, your whole experience will begin to enter upon a new level. What is this new level? It is prayer. Prayer that consists of silence. And while in this silence, God pours into you a deep inward love. This experience of love is one that will fill and permeate your whole being. There is no way to describe this experience, this encounter. I would only say that this love which the Lord pours into your depths is the beginning of an indescribable blessedness. I wish it were possible in this little book to tell you some of the levels of endless experiences you can have with the Lord. Experiences that come out of this encounter with God. But I must remember that this little book is written for beginners. Therefore, I trust on some future day I will be able to relate these deeper experiences to you. There's one thing I will say, however. When you come to the Lord, gradually learn to have a quiet mind before Him. One of the most important things you can do is cease from any self-effort. In this way, God Himself can act all alone. It was the Psalmist speaking for the Lord who said, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. This verse gives you an insight into your own mind. Your self-nature becomes so pleasantly attached to its own efforts that it simply cannot believe that anything is going on within your spirit. Unless the mind is able to feel and understand, it refuses to believe that the spirit is having experience. The reason you are sometimes unable to feel God's working within you is that the work is fully within the realm of the spirit and not in the mind. Sometimes God's workings in you are quite rapid, and yet the mind is not even aware that you are making progress. The workings of God in you, always increasing more and more, are absorbing the workings of yourself. Let me illustrate this. During the night, the stars shine very brightly. But as the sun begins to come up, the stars gradually vanish. Actually, the stars are still there. They have not stopped shining. But the sun is so much brighter that you cannot see them. The same is true in spiritual matters. There is a strong and universal light which absorbs all the smaller lights of your soul. The smaller lights of your soul grow fainter and eventually disappear under the powerful light of your spirit. Self-activity is no longer able to be distinguished or noticed. Self-effort becomes swallowed up in the working of God. Sometimes the question is raised, is not this prayer experience one of inactivity? The question would not even be asked if it were preceded by experience. If you will make some effort to obtain this experience of prayer, this deeper experience with Jesus Christ, you will be full of light and understanding concerning the state of your soul. No, the soul is not inactive, at least not because of barrenness or lack, but it has become still because of great abundance. The Christian who has laid hold of this encounter will understand this and will recognize that this silence is rich, full, alive. This silence is coming forth from a storehouse of plenty. You see, there are two kinds of people who keep silent. The first is one who has nothing to say, and the other is one who has too much to say. In the case of this deeper encounter with the Lord, the latter is true. Silence is produced from excess, not from lack. To die of thirst is one thing, to be drowned is quite another. Yet water causes both. In one it is a lack of water, in the other too much water causes death. This experience with Christ has its beginning in a simple way to pray. Gradually, though, it goes on from there. The experience deepens until the fullness of grace completely stills the activity of the self. Therefore, you see why it is of the greatest importance that you remain as quieted as possible. May I illustrate this again? When a baby is born, it draws milk from its mother's breast by moving its lips. However, once the milk begins to flow, the child simply swallows without any further effort. If the baby continued any effort, it would hurt itself, spill the milk, and have to quit nursing. This must be your attitude in prayer. You must act the same way, especially in the beginning. Draw ever so gently, but as the Lord flows out of your spirit into your soul, cease all activity. How do you begin? By moving your lips, by stirring up the affections of your love for the Lord. As soon as the milk of divine love is flowing freely, be still. Do nothing. Rather, very simply and sweetly, take in that grace and love. When this grace, this sense of the Lord's love ceases to flow, it is time once again to stir up your affections. How? Just as the infant does by moving its lips. All this time remain very quiet. If you bring yourself to the Lord in some other way, you will not make the best use of this grace. You see, the sense of the Lord's presence has been given to you by the Lord to allure you into a restful experience of love. It goes without saying that His presence has not been given to you to stir up an activity of the self. Let us return to the illustration of the nursing baby. Let us say that the baby has drunk gently of the milk and has done so completely without effort. Now what happens? You would have to admit that all of us find it hard to believe that we could receive nourishment in such a passive way as a baby receives his. And yet, look at the baby. The more peacefully it nurses, the better it thrives. So I will ask the question again. What becomes of the little baby after it has nursed? It falls asleep on its mother's breast. It is the same way with your soul. When the Christian has become calm and peaceful in prayer, he frequently sinks into a sort of mystical sleep. Or to put it another way, the powers of his soul are completely at rest. It is here at this point that you begin to be introduced to yet a deeper level of experience. The Christian now begins to touch on an experience of complete rest before the Lord. The mind is at rest. The soul is at rest. The whole being has come to a gentle, quiet, and peaceful calm before the Lord. Nothing disturbs it. At first, you will experience this only occasionally, but eventually your soul will come to experience this state of rest frequently. Be sure of this. Your soul will be led into this experience without effort, without trouble, and without skill. And all you need to do is to continue with the Lord each day, waiting for Him to deepen your experience with Him. Let us look closer at what has just been said. The interior life, that is the inward life of the Spirit, is not a place that is taken by storm or violence. That inward kingdom, that realm within you, is a place of peace. It can only be gained by love. If you will simply pursue the path I have pointed out until now, you will be led to this quiet place of rest. And beyond this rest lies yet another experience, that of continual prayer. When we speak of continual prayer, we're speaking of a prayer that originates from within. It originates there and works out, filling and permeating your whole being. Nor is this a difficult matter. Actually, God demands nothing extraordinary. On the contrary, He is very pleased by a simple, childlike conduct. I would even put it this way. The highest spiritual attainments are really the ones that are most easily reached. The things that are most important are the things that are the least difficult. Again, this can also be illustrated in nature. Let us say that you wish to reach the sea. How will you get there? You need to do nothing except this: embark upon a river. Eventually, you will be carried to the sea without any trouble, without any self-effort. Now, would you like to go into God? Then return to the early thoughts that we presented at the beginning of this little book. Follow the sweet and simple path. Continue on it, and eventually you will arrive at your desired object. You will arrive at God, and with a speed never imagined. Then what is lacking? Nothing. You need only to make the trial effort. If you will make that initial effort, you will find that what I have said is really far too little to express the discovery that lies ahead. Your own experience with Jesus Christ will carry you infinitely beyond even this level. What is there for you to fear? Dear child of God, why do you not instantly cast yourself into the arms of love? The only reason he extended those arms on the cross was so he might embrace you. Tell me, what possible risk do you take in depending solely upon God? What risk do you run by abandoning yourself completely to Him? The Lord will not deceive you. That is, unless it is to bestow on you more abundance than you ever imagined. However, those who expect all of these things from the Lord by self-effort will hear the Lord's rebuke. You have wearied yourselves in the multiplicity of your ways, and have not said, "Let us rest in peace." Isaiah 57:10.